Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this year's the Librarians Virtual Toolkit run by the West Midlands Readers Network with the theme Reading Promotions. My name is Jonathan Davidson and I work for Writing West Midlands, the organisation that manages the West Midlands Readers Network on behalf of its trustees. And of course, those from beyond the West Midlands are more than welcome to this online event we've got this afternoon. I'll be doing some hosting of this afternoon's discussions, but the bulk of the work will be carried out by my colleague Angela Hicken, who manages the day-to-day work of the network. Angela, hello and welcome.
Hello and welcome. It's great to return with our annual Librarians Virtual Toolkit. Now, we love hearing from you, so please join in and say hello in the chat and tell us where you're watching from today. But if we could request that you keep the Q&A function separate from the chat. So we'll let you know which of our speakers across the afternoon are available to take some questions as part of their sessions and invite you to type into the Q&A for selecting. But if you're using the chat, please remember to opt for everyone in the drop-down menu so that everyone can read your message. Thank you. And a reminder that today's event is being recorded and will be published at the West Midlands Readers Network YouTube channel. So that's for you to catch up again at leisure. There's going to be so much information for you to take on board today. So getting that opportunity to look at it again at leisure is really key. And also to point your colleagues towards having a look at that on catch up afterwards, because we know you've got to keep libraries open today. So not everyone can join us. Our toolkit programme today discusses topics that are central to the way that we as library staff and literature professionals connect with our reading communities. So we'll be bringing you a range of speakers in mainly presentations today, but also some discussions looking at promoting the benefits of reading and reading as a social activity that connects people. We'll be looking at reader development initiatives, projects and partnerships with examples from here in the West Midlands, but also nationally. And if you don't have one to hand, a programme with the full running order and the information about all our speakers is available at the West Midlands Readers Network website. If you just pop in under latest news, you'll get all the information. So for those of you who don't know us already, the West Midlands Readers Network is an Arts Council England funded scheme, also supported with opt-in annual subscriptions from library authorities in this region. And our work includes reader in residence, the commissioning of short stories where a writer's paired with a reading group to inspire new bespoke stories, the brokering of author visits into libraries and other creative reading projects, plus training and support for library staff like today's toolkit. But now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. We're absolutely delighted that Jason Vitt from the National Literacy Trust will be delivering the opening keynote speech, sharing a topic that I know we are all so eager to hear more about, and that's the National Year of Reading. So I'd like to invite Jason onto the screen now. Wonderful, lovely to see you, Jason. Welcome, thank you so much for joining us today. And as I know that time is tight, I'm going to hand straight over to you. There's so much to cover and my colleague will line up your presentation slides, so please just say when you want the first one to display and when you're ready for the next one. Thank you and welcome, Jason.
Fabulous. Thanks so much, Angela, Jonathan, and everybody for taking time out of your very busy days for this. So yes, I have the joy to be talking about the second hat that I wear. My first hat at National Literacy Trust is our community-based projects across 20 priority areas, and I'm seeing Bradford and Salford and a few other names saying hello in the chat, so hopefully you might already work with our teams. But for now, you're going to get a gallop through Go All In and the National Year of Reading, and the brilliant Hayley from Reading Agency is going to join in about 15-20 minutes and do some of the library focus there. So I will go to our next slide if I may. he says, pausing dramatically. Ta-da! So, hopefully you at least have heard that the National Year of Reading is coming. And what this is about is to give you a little bit of the context about the research underpinning it and why it looks and feels the way it does. So we know that there is kind of real need around this, and we've got three main priorities. So the DFE has asked National Literacy Trust to help convene the entire partnership across the literacy world. So Reading Agency, Book Trust, we're obviously working UK-wide now. Actually, officially the Welsh Government agreed for the National Year of Reading 2 weeks ago, so it's a genuinely UK-wide initiative. And we've got three main purposes out of this year of activity and campaigning. The first is about the relevancy of reading. The second is about new audiences. So there are three priority audiences within the National Year of Reading, which is early years, which is families with children in areas of deprivation, and teenage boys. And those are the ones that have come out of the research. But to be really clear, the National Year of Reading is a 0 to 100 plus. It is for anyone and everyone. And reading is also incredibly broad. So our definition of reading, and you can see this in the theory of change information that will come out soon, is that it is about communication pretty much in all its forms. It is about graphic novels, it is audio, it is about communication. There is nothing that says it has to be about books beginning to end. And one of the things that we're really keen on for new audiences is people to discover their own purpose in reading, and especially thinking about the number of library partners that are here as well, thinking about the breadth of offer that actually is available and too often is too little known from library services. And the third one, which I think is so important, is about that systems change and partnerships that actually make this last. If we have 12 months of balloons, buntings, and possibly books, but it's not only books, we're going to have failed. Actually, the success of this is how do we get people interested in the world of reading, both as somebody who might read themselves, but also who are the funders that might come in for the first time because there's a halo effect? Who are the partners that might see the renewed relevancy of reading, whether they are tackling child poverty, whether they are looking at homelessness, whether their purpose is mental well-being? Reading and engagement with reading and literacy more broadly has a part to play in all of those. And the National Year of Reading is our opportunity to widen and strengthen those partnerships so that we have something that goes beyond 2026. Next slide, if we could. So these are some of the stats that basically you will see day to day in your real life. But this is a few of the headlines that we know that reading for pleasure is chronically low. We know that reading frequency is significantly down. But we also know that reading for pleasure and reading for personal purpose actually has its own need and is really important. And increasingly, actually, we're moving away, in fact, from talking about reading for pleasure as a phrase, and instead talking more about personal motivation or personal reason to read. We think that's actually more encompassing. We think that's actually a bit more relevant as well. But these are the things that are informing the practice. And if we jump to the next slide, because you will all know all of this, we are looking at the National Year of Reading really kind of achieving these four big things, looking at how a campaign and celebrities and posters and flyers and all of those things can really have both a local impact because of a national profile. So we will be putting things out in community organisations, and National Literacy Trust, as one charity who's part of the National Year of Reading, will be doing our own community activation. But of course, the National Year of Reading is only successful if hundreds of organisations and thousands of people do little things in their own way. We are putting information out to schools, and in fact a series of short videos was released yesterday or possibly the day before, looking at what the offer is to early years, primary and secondary. And of course, libraries are central to this, which is why the Reading Agency is kind of a major partner in all of this and really pushing that engagement with public libraries. The campaign itself is insight and evidence-led. I'm going to unpick that in just a moment in the next couple of slides. And that is really where we drew down into those three target groups I mentioned. And what we are very much reliant on there is all of the other partners across the whole country using the National Year of Reading to connect with their audiences, their service users, and indeed their staff and their employees. The campaign has to be a bit different. So if you'd asked me when I joined the National Literacy Trust 14 years ago, or if you'd asked me a decade ago, I would have probably said something about starting with reading. You know, reading is the doorway, it's the access, it allows you to do what you want. The research is telling us that that no longer works as a message. We have to flip that narrative and actually talk about reading as a way to get more out of what you already care about, because reading is no longer the start point that engages non-readers. And amplification, and this ties in with the sustainability point before. If we create a bunch of new stuff during the National Year of Reading, and it happens and it's great, and then it disappears, we're going to have failed. Even if we had the resource that we need and want, and we don't. But the success of this is going to be getting more people involved in things that are going to be there next year, that are going to be there the year after. So it's about building on what exists and making that more impactful, not about creating things that are new and may disappear. We'll go to the next slide if we may. Research. This slide says we did research. It's very exciting. But the point is that the research has drawn from a huge amount of work already done by academics, by charities working in the field, by research and feedback given from partners in library services. There was also then consumer insight. And what's really important is that then we looked at interviews and views that people gave us about what is actually going to motivate them. So looking at behaviour change. And what is really critical, if we jump to the next slide, is this. What the research told us overwhelmingly was that time was the single biggest factor that people were reporting about why they didn't read. Now, that's actually quite an important message for us when we're thinking about what works, because it isn't that people don't value reading. It isn't that they don't understand that reading has wider purposes or that it's important. It's not even people necessarily struggle to find something which interests them, although that of course happens. But actually the single largest effect that we were seeing was that people said they had a lack of free time. Now, if you look back through the National Literacy Trust annual literacy research reports, which I'm sure all of you do, because who doesn't want a giddy thrill of reading, you know, on a cold and wet Thursday afternoon? But we saw the only spike we'd seen in reading enjoyment reported by children and young people was during COVID. And we went back to young people and asked why, and they told us explicitly we had more time. Now, what that means for a successful campaign and for behaviour change is that we actually need to position people with a choice between why they should read if their time is already limited. Because we're never going to create time, so this is about prioritisation rather than about access or any of those other things. Now, access to great recommendations, all of those things play a part. But first and foremost, what people have told us is that time is the critical factor that they are facing when they are deciding whether to read or not. We'll go on to the next slide. So this is really what the campaign has come down to in terms of the shape and the brand and the style. And it explains why it looks and feels the way it does. Because what it came back to is simply this, that reading is perceived as too long form. It takes longer to start enjoying a book than it does to watch something on TikTok, to watch a Facebook reel. And that is the market we are in. And it is a market, and it is about consumers, and it is about choice. And we need to reposition reading as a choice that somebody makes in a way that is going to appeal to them. The second point on there is about reading being a solitary act. So the way to interpret that isn't actually I'm doing it by myself. Actually, it's more to do with whether it has social value. If you are a reader in a community of readers, saying you're a reader is great because people have a connection. It has purpose, it has social value. For somebody who doesn't see themselves as a reader, perhaps because they perceive reading as being books, for example, but even if they see that it's wider but still don't think of themselves in that way, it doesn't carry social cachet for them. Then the classic, which we probably knew about, reading is perceived as work and not play, but that is about the time factor and, of course, devices. So, you know, phones, we've probably all got them. If you, like me, use public transport on a regular basis, the difference between now and, you know, 5 or 10 years ago, where more people might have a book, a magazine, or a free paper they've picked up, now pretty much everyone is on a device. And they could be reading, but it isn't seen. And very simply, that has a social message that it communicates that reading isn't a thing that is happening all around me, so why would I decide to do it? So those are the kind of 4 key reasons that have come together in order to create the campaign identity and why it's pitched the way it is. And we will now hopefully watch the quick video, which you may have seen, but we're going to give it a go again.
So you eat, breathe, and sleep it. But you're not really into it until you read into it. Reading takes you further than you thought possible. Truly, madly, deeply down the rabbit hole of the thing you love. Discover the novel behind the comic that inspired your favourite film. Read the lyrics to a song you thought you knew backwards and witness pure poetry. See your streets through the eyes of someone who walked them a century ago. Hear your hero in their own words. Follow a thread, join the dots, dig into a trend. Snack, graze, binge, feast, go wild. Because if you love it, can there ever be too much? Only reading lets you go all in. Horror, hexes, horticulture, go all in. Fantasy, romantasy, Lake Annecy, go all in. Pirates, planets, talking rabbits, go all in. If you live it, read it. It's time to go all in.
Grand. If we jump forward 2 slides now. Missed that one because that's old branding. Lovely. Hold there for a minute. So hopefully that gives you a sense. If you haven't seen it before, hopefully you liked it. If you had, hopefully the research helps explain why it is pitched in that way and the purpose behind it. So that doesn't obviously work for every audience. We're redoing for early years. We won't be using this branding for our own work in prisons because obviously people in prison can't follow their passions. But the idea behind it is that it starts with what somebody is already motivated by, and therefore using a bit of time for something they already care about to read is a reasonable ask of someone. Asking somebody to start reading just for that reason isn't going to land. So all of this kind of the collateral and the toolkits, they will be developed. You've already had some sent out by Reading Agency. We'll be doing community toolkits and schools and a whole bunch of others as the year progresses. But to be really clear, National Literacy Trust will be co-branding our own stuff with Go All In because we are a member charity who is making use of it just as a library service can, a business can, and any other organisation. And we will be doing our best to get the branding out there as far as possible with ambassadors and events, but it is something that will be as successful as the organisations and partnerships that decide to take part. Few more slides, and I'm sorry I'm going quickly, but I planned this poorly. Oh, and the slide we skipped over, you will get in your pack. It's just an image we're no longer using around early years. We've decided the messaging isn't right, but there will be more coming. So this is what activation looks like. So an amount of this is about grassroots and locally led activities. So from National Literacy Trust point of view, we've got our hubs in priority areas. So those are communities we work. We've also hired a standalone team working across the country that will be doing similar volunteer and partner mobilisation. And there's a regional team structure. So drop me a line and I'll introduce you to the people in your area as well to do that kind of link up. We'll be putting offers out through schools. That's already gone out. And we've got a collective drive around volunteers. And this is about co-branding and rebadging existing volunteers if they've added some reading to it, but also looking at kind of big employers and supermarkets. You know, if your local authority, for example, has a corporate volunteering day, can it be about reading this year? Can it be something that they would do to support maybe the Summer Reading Challenge, or something as simple as everybody should use some of their volunteering time to join their public library and use it 3 times in the year? Can we have a footfall activity, which is absolutely legitimate volunteering? Jumping on to the next one. So this is your kind of pull together for it before we do calendar, and then I will hand over to Hayley and I'll pretend I'm on time and you'll all forgive me. So what we want to have is a mass mobilisation of volunteers. So that is volunteers in every charity and every sector that is behind that. That is about corporates signing up and using their time and really getting behind reading just as much as it is about, you know, NLT's own literacy champions model. We want to make sure that the campaign is as wide and as deeply reaching as possible. And that is why it's a white label campaign that everyone can use, because the message coming from the right partner is more important than the right message. So we need to make sure that there are organisations out there finding a way to go all in. We obviously have library membership and engagement as that critical crossover between sustainability and engagement and community rooted. But the conversation that we need to have, as well as what is everyone doing, is how do we have a response that the literacy sector is stronger at the end of it? Are there ways that we use this to tap into devolved authorities so that people are thinking and working better? Do we look at library services potentially being anchor organisations that pull together local charitable organisations working around literacy? Is there an ongoing place for food banks and food poverty to also have access to literacy and reading materials to benefit families that will be struggling? So this is about what's the best and brightest idea, how do we use the brand to make that work, and how do we get more people involved in literacy? Last 2 slides now on the practical. This is, as you can tell from how beautiful it looks, not in the formal branding. There's an ongoing process and input to really try and simplify the ask out to any and every organisation. So what we've come up with is this draft version of a calendar, picking key moments in the year. And the idea is that any organisation can say, yes, we want to be part of the National Year of Reading. Yes, we're going to promote the brand and we're going to do the links to the website, which will be a full and functioning website. The current one is just a reskinned version. But people can pick just one moment in the year. So we're going to create these options which are clear and simple for people, but it doesn't mean that you can't do other things. So of course, practical things like in Scotland, back to school is earlier, you know, Yorkshire Day is not in there, but the idea is that people can do just one thing and they're still a part of the National Year of Reading. So the idea is to have tentpole moments, which is where we are putting some of the campaign and some of the ambassador support behind. Drumbeats are ones we've identified that we want to build up and make as big as they can be, but this is designed to be descriptive, not prescriptive. There's loads more that will happen. This is just a quick kind of cue to it. And the next one down is a very draft version of some of the breakouts. So you are a business, an employer, or a solicitor's firm or whatever, rather than a library organisation, and you say, yeah, we would really like to do something around the Summer Reading Challenge, for example. What could it be? Well, they're not going to get DBSs and go into schools necessarily, but they can promote Super Sign Up Saturday, for example, or Take 10, which is a push around mental well-being. Everybody can take part. So what we want to do is give people new to the world of reading and literacy, if you like, some simple things that they can confidently get involved in. And they fill out a pledge on the website, they record their numbers, and collectively we can talk about both the promotion, the engagement, and the numbers who are involved. Final slide from me before Hayley. So this is kind of the message that we are putting out and that we are asking you as insiders in the literacy world to help put out as well. The real message about Go All In is that loads of people are already doing a huge amount that supports and promotes reading. They may not think of it in those terms. There are also loads of organisations that could have a small twist, a little bit extra, something that could bring books, magazines, storytelling, quiet time to read, audio into their activities. And if the National Year of Reading and the Go All In campaign can mobilise people, then that is how it's going to be successful. So on this, the slides, you will be getting all the slides. You will also, if you haven't already, be getting the media packs around it. You can go on the Go All In website and fill out the expression of interest if you've not done so already, and then you'll get the updates. And there will be a new fully functioning website that will come out, and that will also have things like pledges that we're promoting to businesses and other partners to get them to commit to what they are doing. So hopefully your quick insights, that was helpful, useful. Hand over to Hayley for the next bit. So next slide, please. And sorry that there is so much content, but thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks, Jason. So hi, everyone. I'm Hayley Brandon. I'm Head of Marketing and Communications at the Reading Agency. And today I'm here to share the public library strand of activity for the National Year of Reading. So we're calling it Go All In at your local library. Next slide, please. So the vision is to promote the public library as a vibrant, inclusive and trusted community hub for reading, creativity and connection. The overarching aim is to highlight the many benefits of reading engagement and library membership through the Go All In campaign, showcasing the value of the library as a community space and a place to nurture a reading habit. Our desired outcomes for the public library is a higher profile, increased library use and measurable activation and impact. Next slide, please. So the Reading Agency is leading the public library strand of the wider campaign, as Jason's discussed. Our deliverables include coordination of the library sector bodies. So this means we hold a consortium meeting monthly with a core group, including representatives from Libraries Rising, previously known as ASCL, Libraries Connected, CILIP, the British Library, SLIC, Welsh Government, and the chair of the Universal Authors Books and Reading Group. And this consortium group are really working together to communicate information to the sector and help shape campaign delivery within the National Year of Reading campaign framework. We'll be activating the campaign in the public library sector, providing libraries with all the information and resources you need to get involved. Next slide, please. So one of our first actions on undertaking the project was to ask librarians to complete a survey that has allowed us to better understand needs and desired outcomes for the National Year of Reading. We're feeding that information back into the strategy, to the consortium and to the National Year of Reading team. So we've had over 500 responses to date from 80% of the UK library authorities. We asked libraries to vote for their priority audiences out of the 3 audiences defined by the National Year of Reading campaign. And actually 42% selected youth aged 10 to 16 as their top priority audience. There seemed to be, in the feedback, a strong desire to engage with young people, but a real lack of confidence and resource to do so. So we're taking that information and seeing what we can do to support that. We also asked what would support libraries to activate the National Year of Reading campaign. And you won't be surprised to see that funding is up the top, but also printed display and promotional materials, tips and ideas, so toolkits for engaging hard to reach audiences, which aligns up with my first point about the youth aged 10 to 16 as a top priority, social media assets and digital resources, local and national publicity and advocacy, and support for events such as speakers or author visits. And we asked where additional funding would make the most difference. And it was putting on creative and engaging activities, stock purchases, digital equipment, so tablets, iPads, etc., prizes for competitions, and outreach, partnership and staffing support. These were felt to be the most needed to make the most impact. Next slide, please. So listening to what's really needed to activate the National Year of Reading in libraries, we have managed to get the funding required to distribute physical materials to library authorities for promotion of National Year of Reading and for engaging new members, so such as banners, posters, postcards, bookmarks, struts, etc. We'll be sending these materials in January and September to each authority in England. The physical materials are England only, but should other funding become available, this scope can expand to all nations. And all digital assets will be available to other nations, including translation into Welsh. To support awareness of the National Year of Reading in the public library sector and activation of the campaign, we are sharing information to libraries as soon as we get it from the National Year of Reading team. We're sharing that through all available comms channels, including via the library membership bodies. And we also have set up a National Year of Reading library mailer, which now has over 600 sign-ups, which is brilliant. Details on how to sign up to that mailer will be shared at the end, because that's how you'll receive your webinar invite and your the first comms toolkit that's going to go out. We're working with a creative team at the National Year of Reading to develop a library-specific digital assets that will land with you early December. And then an updated toolkit with updated assets will land with you in September. Alongside these, we will be looking at making sure that you've got all the toolkits, all the assets required for those key moments, them drum beats and tentpole moments that Jason discussed. The comms toolkit will include digital materials to adapt for local use, social assets such as photos, videos, ready-to-use copy, as well as activation ideas around the key calendar moments and library offer. It will also include insights and data from the National Year of Reading research, alongside other co-production and research reports aimed at understanding behaviour and motivations for engagement to support engaging the target audiences. The Reading Agency will provide content for the National Year of Reading website for audiences to find out more about what's on at the library over the year and reasons to join the local library. So this will include those key calendar moments, as well as other moments from the Universal Offers calendar, as we look to amplify the great work and activities that are already happening in libraries. More information on these calendar moments and ideas for activation around these moments will be included in that comms toolkit that will land early December. And the assets to support promotion and activation of each key moment will be shared throughout the year, as I said. Next slide, please. So here's an idea of the timeline that we're working to and some key dates. I won't pick up on the last section because Jason has mentioned that. So our key dates really are that the digital asset pack and comms toolkit will be early December. We have the webinar on the 2nd of December. That will absolutely be discussing what's in the comms toolkit, how to use it, how to make the most of the year. We'll be also thinking about kind of activation in communities. So giving lots of ideas, tips, as was suggested in the survey results that's needed. There'll be a representative from the National Year of Reading team that will be joining that session, and they'll be able to answer your questions. And we are currently in the process of fundraising for micro grants for libraries. The top thing that came out of that survey was funding to activate National Year of Reading on the ground. So the Reading Agency is really working with a consortium to look for funding. We are looking for micro grants for activities, events to support engaging new members and target audiences. We have several applications going in, and we really have our fingers and toes crossed that we'll be able to announce funding success as soon as possible, so that it can support your planning. As I said, physical materials will be going out in 2 drops, January and September. Digital materials will be with you at the beginning of next month. And in early 2027, the Reading Agency will provide libraries with all the evaluation reports, insights, infographics, everything that you need to kind of help you make a case of support for future funding and partnerships. Next slide, please. So the libraries are a key part of the legacy of the National Year of Reading. The campaign will drive engagement with libraries as a place to goal in on reading. And as mentioned, the evaluation reports and supporting documents provided from the campaign hopefully can be used to support the sector's future funding asks. Next slide, please. So if you have any questions, please do get in contact with us. The email address is there, and we're getting back in touch with you as soon as we can to answer your questions. You can also sign up to the mailer. The link is there. I will drop it in the chat. If you go to the Reading Agency website and you just search for the National Year of Reading, all the information is on there as well. And if you can join up to that mailing list, that's where you'll receive all the most immediate up-to-date information. As we receive it, we send it out. So do sign up to the mailing list, and yeah, we really, really look forward to working with you all in the Go All In campaign. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much to Jason and to Hayley. That's been such a useful, as I say, whistle-stop tour of the insight into thinking, priorities and plans for the year ahead. And I love that message that it's as much about raising the profile of what libraries are already doing and can keep doing beyond the year. It's about sustaining, isn't it? And very much supported by the promotional materials and the ongoing communication. So we are going to hear more and more and more. We hope our inboxes are full of what's going on with National Year of Reading. So this has been perfect timing for us, and we're so really grateful for your involvement today. A link to the slide deck will be shared along with the toolkit recording link to all the ticket holders, and that will be going out next week. So people can look at it at leisure and really embrace all that information. We had one quick question, was about National Storytelling Week and when was that happening? That's Monday the 2nd of February to Sunday the 8th of February, because I know libraries are making lots of plans for 2026 already. So those are the dates to mark there. So I just want to say a huge thanks to Hayley and Jason for joining us today. You're welcome to leave the screen, enjoy the rest of the toolkit and take a breather. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, wonderful. So now we're thrilled to welcome our next guest, and that's Campaigns Manager for the Reading Agency, Kimberly Sheehan, who's presenting the agency's excellent support for book clubs and readers. So you're very welcome to the toolkit, Kimberly.
Hello.
We are going to be inviting questions from attendees for this session. So if you do have a question, please type it into the Q&A as opposed to the chat. And after the presentation, I'll come back on screen and join Kimberly and I'll select some of those questions to ask. But for now, I'm going to leave the screen and leave you to present. Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you, Angela. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Kimberly Sheehan. I am a campaign manager at the national reading charity, the Reading Agency. So the Reading Agency is a UK charity that I know lots of you are already aware of, that inspires social and personal change through the proven power of reading. We work with individuals of all ages, communities and trusted partners, especially librarians, to share the transformative benefits of reading for happy, healthy and thriving lives. So it's great that this talk is following on from National Year of Reading. I am pleased to have been invited here today to share more about the Book Club Hub and our ongoing support for book clubs offered here at the Reading Agency. We do work with book clubs in lots of different ways, including Radio 2 Book Club, Chatterbooks Groups for Children, and through our prizes work. But I'll be focusing today on the Book Club Hub and our publisher partner work. Hopefully this will show you how you can engage with book club campaigns throughout the year and connect more with publishers to support all of your activity in libraries. Next slide, please. So hopefully you've seen our State of the Nation Adults Reading 2025 report. It's on our website if you haven't, and our other research published which show the need and benefits for book clubs specifically. So half of adults in England don't regularly read for pleasure, rising to over 2/3 of young people aged 16 to 24. We believe book clubs have the power to continue to encourage and foster a community of readers, and again, it perfectly ties into the earlier presentation. Our research collated from book clubs across the UK shows that 94% of people read more widely, feel more connected to others, and talk about reading with others. 91% find reading more enjoyable when they can discuss the book with others, and encourages people to read more. We have also found participation in book clubs is linked to enhanced relaxation, calmness, concentration, quality of life, confidence and self-esteem, as well as feelings of shared community and a common purpose. Next slide, please. So formerly known as Reading Groups for Everyone, the Book Club Hub is run by the Reading Agency, and it is for all, sorry, next slide, sorry, I can't. Don't worry, it's just got the email address, so it's not a problem. Of all ages. Oh, I'll keep talking anyway. And where people can come and read the latest books, news, download resources to use with our clubs, and to apply for free sets of the latest books to review. And library book clubs are always invited to do that as well. Libraries can signpost their groups. So hopefully if someone types in their postcode and they're looking to join a book club, if you have got your group listed on the website, then they will be able to get in contact with you to find out more. So please do, if you haven't already, check with your postcode on there, because there are some groups, I think when librarians leave, that old groups then will be listed on there, or there might be some that you are now running which are not. So please do check out the Book Hub website. The best way for you to keep up to date with the latest offers is to sign up to our adult reading newsletter, which hopefully lots of you do already, because it is the best way to see the most latest offers that we have from our publisher partners and for book clubs. We have currently got over 5.5k book clubs signed up to the Book Club Hub, and we have a monthly bulletin of over 1,000 people signed up. Approximately 85% of those signed up to the website are adult book club leaders, 10% are children's book clubs, and 5% are YA. So please do, if you have children's and YA groups, sign up. We have lots of children's book offers always on there. Please do check if you have outdated groups, as I said, on the website that need removing. We would also love to run articles about how you run your book clubs, to really shout about your work, and to make sure if there are people looking for book clubs in their local area, they might see the article and join your club. Events or book lists that you may want to have, please do get in touch, and we can obviously populate our website. So it's bookclubhub.co.uk if you need it. Sorry, if you can go back one slide. Thank you. So Plus offers opportunities for book clubs and ways for libraries to engage in these various reading promotions. So here are a couple of resources we have on the Book Club Hub website. So the Book Club Hub offers book club leaders, and that includes obviously librarians, access to free offers from publishers and prizes in return for reviews. This gives you the chance to read the latest books and author news, and to really engage with publishers at different levels. And it can help to pick your latest read. There is also the opportunity for people who are part of your book club to share their reviews on the site, and that's always great to see what readers are thinking of books. So you can see on the right hand side is a carousel of some of our recent news blogs. We do have a librarian and teacher guide, which is the image on the left, to download on the website. You can find this in the Getting the Most Out of the Book Club Hub news article. And there's also a guide for book club leaders. So if you have a newsletter, which I know lots of you have, that goes out to book clubs, you might want to include that so they can see more about the site and make the most of it. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to flag, this is an old video, because publishers have been very busy. Oh, it should be a video, but it's okay. in the run up to Christmas releases. Thank you. It's not a very exciting video, but it does move. This just shows you what the site usually looks like. And we're hoping as we come to the end of November, they will start to populate it with more book club offers. So the book club hub offers book clubs, teachers and librarians the support of the free copies, which I think is the real joy. And this is the page that you can see at the moment. So these were all of the offers at one point in time. If you are signed up to the book club hub, you can apply for as many of them as you like. But just as a reminder, it is there to get reviews. So please don't apply for all of them in case you get selected by the publishers for all of them. So there is a home page that has the carousel that shows you the most recent news and offers. There is a news page which has all of our articles on, and that includes the latest prize winners, spotlight of book clubs and librarians who would like to shout about their work. There is the Find a Book page, which is the place for clubs to search for titles and reading reviews from other readers, and that includes book lists as well. We have the offers page, which is the one you saw with all of the books that you could apply for to receive. And once they are reviewed, they are obviously your copies that you can put into stock. Resources, there are hundreds and hundreds of resources, which includes discussion guides, downloadable book lists, library resources, which you can filter by target audience as well. And then we have the Find a Book Club, which is, again, where we would direct people who are looking to join a club to see what is available around their area. And for you, if you are the registered account for your book club, you have a My Group, which is accessible to registered book club members. So there's just a little code they need to type in. Clubs, and then you can track your members and the books that they've read. Clubs can also tag which books they'd like to read as the TBR pile, and you can leave your own reviews. Next slide, please. So following on from the rebrand of Book Club Hub, we changed National Reading Groups Day to become Book Club Day UK this year. Hopefully you saw and took part in the activity for that. Again, it's another opportunity for libraries to shout about all of the book club offers that you have and to get more people joining your club. So after discussing this with our regional library reps that we have as part of my work, we got lots of positive feedback that this is a more informal and welcoming name. So on the 11th of September this year, we celebrated communal reading and the benefits of being in a book club to help create a nation of readers. We highlighted the importance of social cohesion and the positive effects I shared earlier of being in a book club, as demonstrated through the research that we had. The day also provides libraries, as well as book club leaders if they're not in your library, the opportunity to promote their book clubs, encourage readers to start their own club, which again can be hosted within the library, or to invite new members to join a meeting in September, as well as demonstrating how our platform of the Book Club Hub and the resources we have can help to tackle life's big challenges. It's also provide the reading agency with an opportunity to share with book clubs different ways they can engage with all of the things that we do here. So we encourage libraries to join by sharing a comms toolkit, and this included ask each of your book clubs ideas to engage with the day. So this included ask each of your book clubs to bring a friend to their September meeting, share the benefits of being in a book club, celebrate all of your book clubs and what makes them special. That could either be by creating a display, or again, if you want to do an article with us on our website. Highlight your book recommendations for different clubs to try, the opportunity for you to advertise your book clubs to invite new members to join. And we did have feedback from libraries where they were hosting an event for local book clubs to come and meet each other. And that was really lovely to see that feedback. So our tagline for the day was Book Clubs Day UK, stories you love, people to meet, a date for book clubs. Next slide, please. So what was the reach? So we had a great digital reach from the day, and we had over 1,000 views to our How to Join In with Book Club Day UK blog. We had nearly 1,000 visits to our offers board webpage on the day, and over 200 visits to Book Club Day UK 2025 UK poll, and you can see the poll results here on the right. So the Booker Prize also approached us to share a giveaway as part of our activities. They wanted to highlight their book club work. So it gave us at the Reading Agency another way to shout about our partnerships and for other people to get involved. And we had 7 publishers who created articles for their book club picks, which are still on the website if you wanted to have a look. So our comms toolkits also had a good engagement with 800 toolkit bit.ly links, and 112 of our publisher partners use their personalized toolkits as well. Next slide, please. So the day was beneficial to create engagement with Book Club Hub at another point in the year following the rebrand that we had earlier in the year in April. And this allowed us to continue to raise the profile of our book club activity with new and already engaged book club members. It's a day that celebrates communal reading and helps to create a nation of readers by highlighting the importance of all of the positive effects that come from being in a book club, especially in an era when there is lots of people who are feeling very lonely. It's important to expand on those who may not already be part of a book club, which is why you can see some of the activity and feedback that we had from lots of different age groups who were engaging with our activity on the day. Next slide, please. We're pleased to let you know that we'll be running Book Club Day UK again. So it'll be the 10th of September 2026, Thursday. So the toolkit will include newsletter, banner images, so you can include it in your newsletter, social media assets and downloadable posters. There'll be information about the day and why it's important to us as a charity. We will share ideas on messaging and promotional ideas, the power of reading and the importance of being in a book club article, which will have the most up-to-date stats, and also sharing the lasting impact of childhood reading and how we can encourage it. We will also be sharing, as well as the images, draft social media and newsletter posts, as well as having Welsh translations. But if you do have any other suggestions that you would like to have in the toolkit or questions that you have, we have lots of time still to shape the activity. And we would really like to spotlight some more libraries and their work with book clubs. So please do get in touch with me if you'd like to do that. Next slide, please. I'm just going to briefly touch on some of the other key areas of support that we have for libraries that we thought was quite great to share to you today. So the Reading Agency Connect is our revitalised programme, which is our work with publishers. And this is mainly run by my colleague Kathleen, who hopefully lots of you have been emailing if you have ordered display packs or my reading group activity, book clubs. This is to support libraries with their year-round activity and to help connect publishers with authors. We currently have 39 key publisher partners with the Reading Agency Connect who have a membership with us, which means that they can run display pack campaigns, so you can apply to get a free POS pack to put up in your library for lots of different books, as well as being able to run author visits. So there is an available authors event page on our website. Again, it's a bit quiet at the moment, but hopefully they'll be building up some more at the end of the month. And also to have a presentation start at our roadshow, which is happening next week, and I will be talking about again in about 20 seconds. Next slide, please. So if you follow the QR code, this is the link to our available authors event page. This is updated weekly with all of the publisher offers, so it's a great place to just constantly visit if you're looking for resources and information about authors for visits. Once we get our roadshow out of the way next week, I think the publishers will have more time to be putting it all back up on there for you. So next steps is please sign up to our adult reading news or children's reading news if you're a children's librarian newsletter, and visit this page to just keep checking out to see what offers we have available. So at the Reading Agency as well, we have regional library reps who connect closely with the Reading Agency Connect team to help us shape our publisher work by feeding back what is working really well, what they would like to see more in the year. If you would like to become a regional library rep, again, you can please get in contact with me. Next slide, please. But the main thing I wanted to highlight is later this month, we are hosting 2 days, or it's actually next week, next Tuesday and Wednesday, we are hosting 2 days of free events for librarians to come and hear from our publishers and authors. about the upcoming releases and opportunities for you to get excited in 2026. So again, perfect for the National Year of Reading activity. Last year, we had over 1.6k people who engaged directly, but we know that it was shared lots more with teams to get them excited about hearing directly from publishers about lead titles that were coming out and author availability. With the majority of people attending being public librarians. Hopefully, lots of people on this chat have been to the roadshow and can say that they found it useful. Next slide, please. And just to summarise on that, our virtual roadshow is an opportunity for you to hear about the upcoming book releases, enter giveaways and ask burning questions, because we have Q&A at the end of every session. Plus, throughout both days, you'll hear ways we can work together in 2026. It's completely free and a great moment for CPD development. So I hope that lots of you will be able to join us on the day. And if not, if you sign up to one of the events, you will then get the link to all of the recordings the following week as well. And final slide, please, from me. So please do get in touch if you have any questions about anything I spoke about today, and hopefully it's given you some ideas of how you can use the Book Club Hub to really build your book club activity, and ways that we can support you, especially with Book Club Day UK next year. And that's it from me, Angela.
Thanks so much, Kimberly. That's wonderful. I've got a couple of quick questions, if I may, from the audience. The first one is actually about the use of the phrase book club as opposed to reading group. And I know a lot of library services still use the term reading group, for instance. Has the reading agency done any kind of work on that as to find out what's most attractive? Apart from Book Club Hub rhyming, is there other reasons why you use book club rather than reading groups?
Yes, definitely. So it came about from a survey that we did with adult readers. I think part of it is what impacted into the State of the Nation adult report as well. So the feedback that we had specifically on book club activity was that most book clubs, and that includes out of library, I suppose, private book clubs, is that they call themselves book clubs rather than reading groups. So we felt that we would go with that because it does have that more informal tone to it rather than reading groups. So that is why we changed it to book clubs, and then we changed it to Book Club Hub. But I did have a reading group slip up when I was presenting as well. So it's absolutely fine. Whatever you call them, it is that activity of communal reading is absolutely fine to use. But that's why we have used Book Club Hub.
Great, thank you. And another sort of practical question really on the Book Club Hub, I think, and that's from Anastasia. Are library services able to access their local book clubs' book lists and wish lists through that website to support their own stock ordering at library level?
So I'm not sure at that larger level, but if it is you have set up your book club list on there, then you have all of that information. So for example, if you have set up your profile and then you have shared the code that you get to share with your members, so there are lots of librarians who have multiple, obviously, groups, clubs listed under their profile. You can see all of that information.
Okay, but you wouldn't be able to sort of access the information if you from other local groups that maybe don't borrow from the library, or librarians don't have
not
that
currently
in.
because of mainly data. Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much, Kimberly. Well, I think we will wrap up there, and I just want to say huge thanks to you for your generosity in sharing those insights and examples with us today. We have a date for our diary, the 10th of September 2026, as one of those good focal point dates in the National Year of Reading, and a chance for us to shout about all the work that we do in support for reading groups. Really interested to hear that you still use that structure of regional library reps.
Yes.
Is that the best way for people to sort of cascade their questions and queries up to the reading agency?
Yes, definitely. So we have obviously our list of regional library reps. So if you're not sure who it is for your region, please do get in touch. But we are happy to add people who are key members within their libraries, who can find out the information from all of the librarians as to what they're looking for, what their needs are, and also can disseminate the other way the information that we share from the reading agency. So yes, it's still there. So you can either get in touch to find out who your regional library rep is, or if you'd like to join as well. We're always more than happy to have lots and lots of people join.
Okay,
Thanks
so much again, Kimberly. I will let you go, but thank you for sharing your presentation and your thoughts today.
Thank you.
Okay, now we've gone from the national to looking now at a couple of regional examples, so sort of hone that. We're going to move on to listen to two West Midlands based librarians as they share some wonderful reader development projects with us. Now, each are going to share, again, a 10-minute whistle-stop tour of their particular project, and then we'll come back together on screen for some discussion. And again, we are inviting questions from attendees in this session. So if you have a question, please type it in the Q&A as opposed to chat. Please say where you're watching from and then the question, and I'll select some of those when I join our two librarians at the end of their session. So first up onto the screen, I'd like to welcome Amy Hawkins, who is the Reader Development Librarian from Warwickshire. And Amy is going to give us a tour of Book Bingo. I'll hand over to you now, Amy.
Hi everyone, my name's Amy Hawkins and I'm Reader Development Librarian for Warwickshire Libraries. Last year we launched our first ever reading challenge for adults and it's called Book Bingo. Next slide please. We just have a quick video here for you that explains what Book Bingo is. Next slide, please. So as you can see from the video, it's a reading challenge where there are 12 categories, one for each month, although you can do it as quick or as slow as you like. Read one book from each category to complete the challenge, and you can sign up here. We can sign up online on our website, or we can sign up in one of our county managed libraries. There's just a list there of all the questions that we ask. Those are for data, for the back end, so that we can share them with the Arts Council, who we receive our funding from being a national portfolio organisation. Next slide, please. So once you've completed the challenge, there's an online form. We use Microsoft Forms to collect all of our data. And when people have completed the challenge, they can be entered into the prize draw. And then they can collect their exciting badge from the library to say that they have completed the challenge. Next slide, please. So we have a landing page for the website that has the YouTube video on there. It has links to how to sign up, how to complete, how to send in book reviews, all the information on there. And also on there, we have reading recommendations for each of the 12 categories, so that if people are stuck. And those are also all sent in to me by our library staff. So that's really nice to get those involved as well. Next slide, please. We have a Facebook group where we encourage people to talk about books, as it was interesting what they were saying about the National Year of Reading and it being a social activity. We're trying to get people sharing what they're reading, talking about books. And we only let people into that Facebook group if they are taking part in the challenge. We have it as you have to, be accepted into that, and we check against our form whether people have taken part in the challenge. Next slide, please. Each month we have one category which we celebrate, and all 18 of our libraries will have displays on that theme as reading recommendations for the public. And there are also, you might be able to see on that one there, that there's the bookmarks, which I'll mention in a second. So next slide, please. Here are the bookmarks. It's just an invitation to customers to share what they've been reading, what they thought of the book, what category, just a way of trying to, share the experience and get people talking about what books and recommending books to each other. Next slide, please. So we've had some real games of bingo as part of the challenge this year to celebrate. So we had a launch event, and it was initially, it was just going to be the one event, but it went down so well, we decided to do 3 of them. So we did a midway point, and we're going to do a finale event as well in December, and we're going to replicate that again next year. So because it's free, we didn't have to have a gambling license for that, and we used our funding to buy prizes, and it was all absolutely free to play, and we had really good feedback for that. Next slide, please. We also had monthly events to go alongside the themes. As you can see here, there's quite a wide variety, and I'm now in the stages of planning for our 2026 events. Next slide, please. So in terms of marketing, there's obviously those postcards, posters, tent cards, also physical marketing. We use social media, and we also found that we were using paid ads for our events, but we didn't actually use paid ads just for the challenge itself, just for the events. And what we found was that word of mouth was the most important form of spreading the word to our customers about the challenge. Next slide, please. So obviously there are costs to running the challenge. So as you can see here, there's a list of all of the costs, and not just for the challenge itself, but for the events. Next slide, please. So we were given, as part of the funding, some targets for the challenge, as you can see here. So far we've had 824 participants, which has smashed our 200 participant goal, which we're really pleased with. We've had 133 finishes as opposed to the 50 finishes target. We have 133 active members on the Facebook group. We're a little bit behind on the target for improved literacy, but we're wondering if that is the best way to measure it. We're in conversations at the moment. I'd be interested to hear from anyone else who feel that, a question that we could ask for improved literacy as well. Next slide, please. So obviously, one of the things we really wanted to achieve was getting new audiences to Warwickshire libraries. At the moment, 4% are new members to the library in order to take part, and we'd really like to improve that for next year. The aim was to do 2 events, and we've definitely done that, plus lots of extra author events as well. And for social media, it was to have 1 social media post a month, but we've definitely done more than that as well. As you can see here, there are lots of different types of posts we've been doing monthly, as well as the sort of ad hoc. Something's happening, let's start a conversation on this type of content. Next slide, please. So one of the interesting findings we've had, that obviously we've not finished the challenge yet, but we're making our way. So last time I checked, we had 49% of people saying that book bingo made them read or listen to more books this year, which is a really positive outcome. Next slide, please. And did it make you borrow more books or audiobooks, either physically or virtually, from the library? And 57% was yes, which is really, really pleased with that outcome so far. Next slide, please. So from our starters, so far, we've had quite a mixed age range, as you can see here. more of a mixture than we actually anticipated. So that's really nice to see a wide range of ages. For gender, it's obviously mostly female, as you can see here. So we'd love to work on ways we can reach more men and other genders for next year. And then here comes back to my earlier point about word of mouth. Most people found out about book bingo through members of library staff. And that's really interesting. What we'd really like to work on next year is doing more outreach and reaching new members. So obviously, library staff can't reach out necessarily out of the library. So it'd be great to get some more, visits to external partners and things like that for next year. Next slide, please. So it had some really lovely feedback. Lots of people saying that it's made them read more books outside of their comfort zone, finding new authors, and really enjoying the challenge. So that was really nice. Next slide, please. So the lessons that we've learned from this year, personally, I didn't think about this until a couple of months ago, but a monthly newsletter for everyone taking part in the challenge, just to sort of encourage them to keep reading, just reiterating all the different events that we have, the categories. I think somebody once in person said to me, I didn't realise that the libraries were doing categories in a certain order, so I'd love to be able to sort of highlight more of that. Next year, obviously, what I just said about more outreach, we'd love to reach more people that don't necessarily use the library, because obviously it's great that we've got lots of people joining in the challenge that already use the library, but we'd love to reach more people. Previously on our social media, we were just using our general Warwickshire Libraries Facebook page to talk about the challenge, but this next year I'd really like to have more prompts within our Facebook group, because apart from the odd one, it's a lot of it was sort of conversations were started between people themselves, which was obviously lovely, but I feel like we could have got a bit more conversation going throughout the year. We did have a piece of feedback saying somebody would like more events in person to get together to talk about books. So that's something we're exploring for next year. But obviously that's quite a big undertaking, and it would have to be spread out around our libraries. And one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we got was that children would like something similar. So we're really excited that next year we're going to be exploring some book bingo challenges for children and teens as well, and families, which would tie in perfectly with the National Year of Reading as well. So yeah, that's book bingo. Sorry, I was speeding through that a little bit there. But if anyone has any questions, of course, please put them in the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Amy. That was wonderful. That's a very catchy little video you've got there to promote things with. I'm actually going to just move on now before we come back all together on screen and ask those questions, have a chat. Amy's going to leave, and I'm going to ask Terry Heath, the Library Development Officer from Staffordshire, to join me on screen. Hello, Terry, you're very welcome. And I know you're going to tell us about the project that you recently ran in your library service.
Fantastic. Thank you, Angela. If you could go straight to the second slide, that would be lovely. Thank you. So my name is Terry. I'm a Library Development Officer here in Staffordshire. And our Reader in Residence project was called Desert Island Books. And why Desert Island Books? Well, what we wanted to do is encourage our reading community to come together to share the books that were special to them. So we targeted those who didn't at the time belong to one of our existing library groups, but we also saw this as an opportunity to get the members from our various groups together. So the idea of Desert Island Books came about in response to the post-COVID enthusiasm, not only to re-establish our original range of social groups that met in the library prior to the pandemic, but also to support the desire to host new reading opportunities. So alongside our traditional reading groups, we introduced a shared reading group with a trained reader leader, a silent reading group that meets once a month on a Saturday, a walking reading group, a poetry appreciation group, reading friends groups, and 2 creative writing groups too. So our ambition really was to bring these groups together to celebrate Desert Island Books. We saw Libraries Week in 2024 as the perfect hook for this celebration. And we wanted to encourage people to widen their reading choices through the project too. We also wanted to establish more reading friends sessions, and we saw this as an opportunity to really get to grips with understanding reading trends and patterns that were currently taking place. Next slide, please. So in terms of our planning process, we agreed that we would have a county-wide promotion whereby we encourage people to list on a postcard the 4 books that they would take with them to a desert island, should they be lucky enough to be sent there. We would also commission an author writer to lead 4 reading cafe style sessions whereby people could come together to share their reading choices. In conversation with Angela, we discussed who we thought would be a good lead for our reader in residence, and we decided upon the local author Lisa Blower. That's Lisa's photo on the slide. As well as being a published and successful author, Lisa is a lecturer at the nearby Keele University, which is just 2 miles away from here. And the timing was perfect because soon after we chose Lisa, she went and won the Royal Society's National Short Story Award. So brilliant, a brilliant accolade. We looked at a postcard design that would be simple for people to complete and would also act as material for local library displays afterwards. We planned a social media campaign, and we also had online participation too through our libraries, our Staffordshire Libraries book chat page, Facebook book chat page. Next screen, please. So this is just the front and back cover of the postcard. So you can see it was very simple design, neat and tidy, not asking too many questions. It was mostly for the customers, the people getting involved to list their 4 titles. They were allowed, when they went to this desert island, to take with them the works of Shakespeare and their book of faith as well. Next slide, please. So what did we learn from the project? Well, people were so eager to share their book choices and also the reasons why they had chosen the titles that they had. And this was particularly interesting. This resulted in some great group conversations and a real sense of people connecting through the books that they were reading. People described the project as fun and engaging. And it was really interesting to understand the criteria that people adopted in selecting their titles. Some simply chose their favourite all-time reads, which is what we expected, whilst others thought outside the box a little bit and looked at survival guides, do-it-yourself books. One person chose the Coconut Miracle cookbook, and it does exist. Apparently it does exist. Individual libraries enjoyed taking ownership for the project too. They used the postcards that were returned to their own libraries and the books chosen by their customers to take local ownership and produce their own little displays and produce their own lists of the libraries or their community's favourite reads. And there's definitely a demand for similar future events. Next slide, please. So selection patterns. Some of the titles included the hefty ones that people had always meant to read, always wanted to read, but never quite got round to it. So they figured that being stranded on a desert island, they'd have plenty of time. So things like War and Peace, Tom Jones were listed. Books that people remembered fondly from childhood. Books that helped them navigate difficult times in their lives. And this was really quite touching. The list was really quite extensive, included books that helped people through, to navigate difficult times in their lives, such as through bereavement and ill health, or also joyful experiences in their lives. So when they got married, what they were reading when they got married, or what they were reading when perhaps they had a child. Books that sparked their initial interest in reading, so what got them into reading in the first instance. Quite a few non-fiction titles were referenced, which perhaps took us a little bit by surprise. Biographies, history, nature writing and poetry. Nature writing and poetry in particular, I think. And we've noticed a surge of interest in those since COVID. Many books by Japanese writers, which of course is in vogue at the moment. There was a good balance of classic titles and more recently published contemporary books. And we just love this little quote at the end. Can we take an author instead of a book so that they can continue to write new material for us in the future as well? Next slide, please. So we did a bit of analysis of the returns because we really wanted to highlight the county's favourite reads. And some of these might surprise you. I'm not entirely sure. Hamlet's been hugely popular in Staffordshire, so we weren't too surprised to see that at the top. It's nice to get To Kill the Mockingbird there as well. Island Missing Trees and Small Things Like These were the other two that really seemed to spark people's interest. Next slide, please. So impacts. 400 and I think it's actually 436 postcards completed, but never mind, we won't quibble over 5. 51 people attended 4 physical sessions. There's been lots of spin-off opportunities. Once we were connected with Lisa Blower and Keel Arts, which has been amazing. So we've had 2 poetry busks in the library to celebrate World Poetry Day and National Poetry Day. And we are planning a Saturday micro residency in January, towards the end of January, with Charlotte Higgins, who happens to be the chief culture writer for The Guardian and was also born locally, and Newcastle was her childhood library. So that will be amazing. There'll be more Reading Friends sessions taking place in the north of the county in particular. And a spin-off from all this too was that it got the library staff thinking about producing their own list of sort of positive and uplifting reads to coincide with those that were chosen by the customers as part of this project, highlighting those ones that had helped them to navigate those difficult times or joyful times in their lives, really. So the library staff across Staffordshire have now produced their own little list, and we use this to promote on those wellbeing days throughout the year, such as Mental Health Awareness Week, Time to Talk Day, and World Mental Health Day. Next slide, please. So some lovely positive feedback there. Those are just a few of the many positive quotes that we had. Just to highlight a few of them. I really enjoyed the opportunity to share my favourite reads. We should do this more often. I quite agree. We don't have the opportunity to get together and chat about books like this, which is fabulous. And I really like the one near the bottom, which was from one of our representatives from one of our community managed libraries who came along and really enjoyed the session, and they want to run something similar to Reading Friends at their library in the future. And I think we're just going to finish off with the last slide, which shows a couple of photographs from the events that we did, and a local display in one of our smaller libraries as well. So the first picture there is the one that we did here in Newcastle Library down the corner, and Lisa's there holding the book in the bottom left-hand side. And yeah, we just had a wonderful series of events, and thank you to West Midlands Readers Network and Angela for making it happen and giving us the money to make it happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Terry. Interestingly, one of the questions we had was about funding for the projects that both of you, if I invite Amy, onto the screen as well, we'll have a chat. Amy, I think I answered correctly in that the person who put the question in terms of Warwickshire, that was through your Arts Council funding for NPO status that helped with you with the book bingo?
Yeah, so we've had national portfolio organisation, quite a mouthful, status for a couple of years now, and we've got it for a couple more years. And so within that, we have lots of different strands of activities, and one of those is called Warwickshire Reads. And so book bingo comes underneath that. So we are very, very lucky to get funding for it. I mean, it could be done on a much smaller scale, a lot cheaper. So because obviously the things like book bingo events, we have to buy the prizes and it's all free and everything. So it's incredibly helpful for that. And I've had more to be able to spend on promotional materials, but it could be done on a smaller scale, I think.
Yeah, and Terry, you mentioned obviously you've got your reader in residency funding from the West Midlands Readers Network, and that's mainly to pay for the facilitator role, really, and also the print publicity, the postcards that went with the project.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's invaluable, and it was great. And I think that offer's made once a year, is it not, Angela? And that goes out to the West Midlands reps, who then share it within their authority. So yes, we were very grateful because it was a wonderful project, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without that funding. So thank you.
Great, you're very welcome. I've got another couple of questions actually to put to you. It's interesting, both of you mentioned Facebook as the kind of I suppose, the social media platform of choice, or rather the ones that you have found work the best for your reading communities. I wonder if you can tell us a bit more about which social media platforms your library services use, and why it is that Facebook sort of comes out tops for this kind of conversation and communication. Terry, if you want to start.
I think with us, we've always found that Facebook perhaps meets the demographic in terms of the reading community that really supports Staffordshire libraries mostly, I think. When it came to COVID and we pretty much closed down, we opened up a Staffordshire Libraries Facebook page called Book Chat, and it became hugely popular with huge numbers of sign-ups, lots of publishers engaging with us because it was the only opportunity they had to get their publishers speaking to people. They couldn't get into bookshops to do their book launches. So we had a huge amount of success that way. We do have Instagram pages. We've had X pages in the past too. But we do find that most of our success tends to come through Facebook. I think it works nicely in terms of generating conversations too. So yeah, I don't know if Amy's got anything to add.
I totally agree with everything Terry said there as well, with the demographic, and it's just more of a platform for sort of informal chatting. With Facebook, we had a similar story in that during COVID, we had a Facebook group as well that did really well, and then it kind of petered off a little bit as libraries reopened. So we thought, let's sort of bring it back to life with Book Bingo, and I think with Facebook, you've got that facility to have groups and chats that are separate, whereas with other channels, you don't have that so much. They're more of a audience, the occasional comment, but not the kind of like content creation as you can with Facebook groups. We also have Instagram. We are technically on X, but we don't post on there anymore. And we've not got anything else other than that. We're not allowed TikTok in Warwickshire County Council, and there is explorations of Blue Sky and Threads and things like that, but there's just not enough of an audience base, and we don't have the capacity to sort of make the most of that at the moment. So yeah, we do find Facebook and it's really useful as well for reaching out to community groups, we find. So you've got all the local pages, so we can post relevant events on the local pages, which you don't quite have that same sort of facility on Instagram, for example.
Okay, thank you. And just a quick question to finish this session, and it's about really that all of these type of projects really rely on staff buy-in, don't they? So you've created the project idea, but it's the staff on the everyday day-to-day staff in the libraries who their enthusiasm can really make an impact on delivery. Amy, can you tell us a bit about how you get staff buy-in?
It varies from library to library, and we have some libraries that really absolutely ran with it, and some libraries that were a little bit more reluctant. But all of our libraries got sign-ups. On our sign-up form, we said which library have you signed up in if it isn't online, and so we every month I would sort of in our internal newsletter post to show how many libraries have got sign-ups, and I think a few of them got a little bit competitive, which was quite nice. But I think as well, I think there's been a bit of a call from staff for an adult reading challenge for a while, so they were really pleased to see that, and a lot of the staff have joined in. I mean, we have £100 National Book Token prize for the public, but we've also got one for staff. So there's a separate prize draw, and that was to try and bribe staff into taking part, I guess. And it's worked, and staff have really got talking. I've had one member of staff in particular was like, I was really in a reading rut. I didn't read any books last year. Now I've read like 24 because of Book Bingo. And it's just getting a couple of staff on board, and then they sort of roles, they affect roles then, and so it's really nice to see the staff being passionate about it as well. And also I find as well, just it's quite tricky because I don't have one library that I work in, but I try and travel around, and like you'll see with the Book Bingo video, there's some staff in there, so it's trying to get some staff involvement. This year I'm currently working on the next video for the next year, and I've managed to get more staff this year, so I think it's just building up and making the staff feel, you know, like they have some sort of ownership of it as well. And so as well with the website, with the reading recommendations, they all come from our library staff, so I ask for recommendations, and then staff feel like they've got a part to play in it as well, which is really important.
Thank you, Amy. Terry, anything more to add on staff enthusiasm?
I think particularly Newcastle here, where I'm based at the moment, and I've worked here probably most of my years. We've always engaged. We always encourage the staff to engage in conversations with our customers to really gauge what they're sort of reading at the moment, what the reading trends are. Is there anything that they're particularly interested in that they can't find? Ask those general questions to the customers. What are they reading? What are they enjoying? We work really closely with our partners here in Staffordshire as well, as part of a wider network. So it's about getting that message out in terms of what we want to achieve and how people can link into us. We have a newsletter that we complete on a monthly basis that we can send out to our regular users. So it's that way of keeping them informed too. But I think it's also about making it fun, and we try to introduce that into our Reading Friends sessions, so we all have that enjoyable time. We all have a good laugh.
Brilliant. Well, what a good note to leave on. Having fun in our libraries. Thank you both so much for those practical plans of delivering two wonderful projects, both based in opening up reading choices fundamentally. Both the positive feedback and the pitfalls or things you might do differently. So thank you very much for your honesty and your generosity joining us today. I'll ask you if you want to leave the screen. I'm now going to invite on, cheerio, my colleague Jonathan, who is going to introduce and lead our next session. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Angela, and thank you, everyone. It's been a fascinating time. The time has totally flown by. This is our last major presentation. It's going to be in the form of a conversation between myself and the poet Liz Berry, who I hope will now appear on screen as if by magic. And there she does, and unmute. So, Liz, lovely to see you. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to talk to you about public libraries particularly. Before we start our conversation, and I hope we may have a little poem towards the end, but before we start our conversation, I'm just going to say a little bit about you, just to give people some background. You are an award-winning poet and author of the critically acclaimed collections Black Country in 2014, The Republic of Motherhood in 2018, and most recently The Home Child, published in 2023, which I know many people will have read and will have seen you perform and work with, which is a wonderful piece of work, and a novel in verse. So for many library users, a crossover into poetry. As I've said, you've won all sorts of prizes, but we're going to talk particularly about the work you've done supporting public libraries. So welcome to this conversation, Liz.
Thanks, Jonathan. It's so nice to be here.
Lovely. Well, let me start with the obvious first question, which is to ask you a little bit about your personal memories and experiences of public libraries, why libraries became important to you as a person.
Well, libraries became really important to me as a person very early on because throughout my childhood and teenage years, my mum was the library assistant in the Wolverhampton Public Library Service. So worked all over libraries in the Black Country. So we spent a good deal of our childhood between the shelves of the libraries of the Black Country. And when you grow up to be a writer, of course you love books, and people often say, did you grow up in a house of books? And I say, no, not at all. We hardly had any books, but we had the library. So then I went on to study English at university, spent more time in libraries, became a teacher, a primary school teacher, so took my classes to libraries. And now as a writer, I also run creative writing workshops in libraries, and through the Reader charity, I run a shared reading group for adults in my local library in Kings Heath.
That's wonderful to hear, and obviously in many ways doesn't come as any surprise. Writers need libraries, and you're represent those many generations of people who have been able to access all this wonderful reading, and also the wonderful space. So before I ask you about your more recent campaign about libraries, would you say something about the nature of library spaces and whether they were important to you as a reader, or if you saw them being important to other people who introduce libraries too, like the children in your schools or perhaps your own children?
Yeah, I think libraries are really important spaces. I always think of them as one of the last free, welcoming public spaces that we've got, where there's no requirement to purchase anything. There's no requirement to sort of do anything, could be anything. Actually, it's a safe place to come if you want to work quietly, if you want to read, if you want to join a group, find out information. I now run a reading group for adults. Mostly it's older adults. But we have all sorts of people in. We run at the same time as a toddlers rattle and rhyme group that also happens in the other room in the library. So I see the full spectrum. I see people studying. I see people coming in for a chat to the librarians. We sit next to the librarian's desk, so we hear the many, many conversations that go on every day between library staff and readers. But I think that idea that a library is a space where everybody's welcome is a really important thing.
So that brings us back to not just the physical space, but also to the people who run the library service. And clearly your mum was one of them. So we assume you're very positive about a very positive role model there. Would you, things have changed, things have been changing, and we're going to come on to the campaign work you've done in a moment. But perhaps casting your mind back over the years you can remember using libraries, you've got lots of highlights, I know, from what you've just said, but can you also say a little bit about the change that's been happening that in the end has caused you to start to be more active about promoting public libraries?
Yeah, I've been using public libraries throughout my life as a reader, and I've also got children now, and so I've used public libraries with my children. I think one thing I've really noticed here in Birmingham, where I live, is dramatic reductions in library opening hours, making it more difficult for families to get to libraries. Also, an increase in things like self-service desks. So really encouraging people not to interact with library staff, but to just take out their own books, which I've got really mixed feelings about. On one hand, maybe quite useful and quick, but on the other hand, I think everybody likes to chat to the librarian, myself and my children included. So I've seen those changes, and actually in Birmingham in particular, I know in common with lots of areas in the country, there's just been increased cuts and increased threats to public library services, to increased pressures on staff and widening expectations, merging with other community services, meaning it's difficult for staff to be able to concentrate on running things like story groups, rhyme time, adult reading groups, because other things are being asked of them.
Yes, it was interesting. The presentation we had right at the start of this conference about the National Year of Reading, or maybe it's actually the research the Reading Agency had done about why children particularly read so much in during lockdown was because they had time. And obviously the other side of that, or a link to it, is you want to have time in the library. I'm going to pursue this idea a little bit more before we talk about the campaigning work you've done. Certainly myself, thinking back to my childhood, I found the library to be a place of refuge on a small scale. Refuge because I could be there and just read books, and I wasn't an oddity because no one was going to challenge what I was doing. Much more difficult when you're out, as it were, in the public domain as a young person. You don't necessarily sit on the bus reading books if you don't want to draw attention to yourself. So perhaps I imagine that's your view as well, that it's not just the activity in the library, it's just the sheer amount of time you can spend in it, happily dreaming, if that's what you choose to do.
Yeah, and actually, we'll talk a little bit more about the Library Zine campaign in a minute. But in that, I visited lots of libraries in Birmingham and spoke to sort of readers past and present. And one thing so many people mentioned was having the time and space offered by the library. People talked about it as a place of refuge, of quiet. People from all different ages and different communities in Birmingham mentioned the library as being this oasis, a place away from home, a place where you could follow your own interests, study, a place where if you're a young person, you could have a little bit of independence, in that you were allowed to sort of go to the library as a safe place where you could work and daydream a bit and get away from responsibilities. So that still seems to be a really common theme in I think people's affection for and need for libraries.
Yes, it's one of those spaces where you transition from being a child to being a grown-up. And it may be linked to your aspirations to read those books which are not in the children's library. Of course, that's part of our reading life, but it's a nice space. And as you say, people generally feel a library is a safe space. And as you said right at the very start, there aren't the temptations to consume. It's not going to cost you money. I mean, there are things you can pay for in libraries, of course, but generally the core bookshop you can't. Let's come to your campaign that you were involved in starting last year. So you've mentioned that there were cuts in many local authority areas, and Birmingham was no stranger to them, and particularly severe cuts for various reasons. But you could have responded like many of us did, to just think this is terribly disappointing. Oh no, why is this happening? But actually, you did something else along with your writer friend, the writer Catherine O'Flynn. So perhaps you could just take us back to what prompted you to actually get up and challenge what was happening.
So, sort of a year ago, when sort of suggested cuts to Birmingham's community libraries were first announced, so it was going to be a long consultation process, but really the cuts were pretty brutal, those being suggested, with multiple libraries being closed, buildings sold off, hours cut. And there was a lot of sort of sorrow and outcry in Birmingham. And Catherine O'Flynn, the novelist, had popped sort of a wistful thread on social media saying, "Oh, once upon a time I had a dream to make a magazine that featured every single library in Birmingham, and I'd visit it and write about it." And I thought, yes, that's exactly what we're going to do. So that's what we did. I thought, actually, as writers, one gift we've got is that we've got a public profile. We've got an ability to make a noise about things and make a fuss about things. And so we devised a campaign, the Brum Library Zine campaign, where we matched 35 Birmingham writers with the 35 community libraries of Birmingham. And we sent them out on micro residencies to their libraries. So each writer visited their library, spent some time there in the building, chatted to staff, chatted to readers, and then they produced a new piece of fiction, a short play, a poem inspired by their library. And we put them together in a little paper copy fanzine, which when we distributed free across the libraries of Birmingham. So we managed to get some amazing writers, really diverse in terms of their ages, their backgrounds, their genres. We had people like Jonathan Coe, Kit Duvall, Mark Billingham, right through to sort of really new up-and-coming writers in Birmingham. We also, in order to make as much noise as possible, we worked with the artist Tom Hicks, Black Country Type, and the designers Punks and Chancers, so that we could make the zine look really cool. We also had T-shirts, we had Libraries Give Us Power stickers. We had a really noisy social media campaign on Instagram, just to try and drum up as much noise as possible and encourage people to join the campaign. We did a crowdfund and also fundraised through Punks and Chancers merchandise. So we were able to pay for over 2,000 zines to be printed, which then we distributed free in each of the community libraries in Birmingham. We went out and visited the libraries and the librarians. We managed to get lots of noise about the campaign and about libraries through The Guardian, the BBC, on the radio, in local press. But the main aim was we wanted to get people talking about how much they love libraries. We were part of the Birmingham Loves Libraries campaign, which is the campaign to protect libraries. And that was what we wanted, to get people chatting, to get a conversation going, to make it feel like a social thing. So we did events in libraries where the writers would do readings. We had workshops in libraries where you could come and meet writers and work alongside them. We ran campaigns where we helped people to write letters to their councillors and MPs. There was read-ins, just lots of active stuff. We wanted people to feel that they were part of something. It's been beautiful to hear from everyone else today about this social aspect of reading and the social aspect of libraries. So that's what we really tried to tap into, this idea that if we really love libraries, then we've got to make a noise about it. And this idea, especially for younger people, lots of whom we were targeting with the campaign, this idea of use it or lose it. Like, it's great to say you love libraries, but get to your library, borrow your books, go to an event there, run an event there, chat to the librarians, start a reading group. This whole idea of just getting involved.
Well, it was a remarkable campaign, and you did sweep so many writers into that campaign. And I know that they were almost sort of jockeying for position to get the library they wanted to go back to. There's a couple of things I want to pick up from that. I mean, first of all, you mentioned encouraging people to get behind the campaign and to appreciate the value of libraries and to understand that if you didn't make your appreciation vocal, you would lose the library. That is inevitably, of course, what happens when people are used to a service. And probably you and certainly I grew up with a sense that the libraries would be an eternal provision. I couldn't imagine as a young person there ever not being a library. Every town had a library. Libraries was where you went to. So there is something, isn't there, that libraries are almost so vital and so ever present, but they're therefore that much easier to forget when it comes to campaigns. Did you find anybody who was at all resistant to you campaigning for libraries as opposed to campaigning for direct children's services or looking after people with other issues in the community?
No, and I think one thing we came up against is sometimes that sort of a false idea peddled that libraries are not connected to all those other things that go on socially in the community. So when we went out to some of the most sort of deprived wards in Birmingham, actually found there were really essential things going on, mum and baby groups, speech and language things that happened in libraries, reading groups that drew in vulnerable people, really regularly elderly users. Perhaps this is the only conversation, people might have all day or week as part of a group they go to, and people with learning difficulties, school groups. So actually we found it's sort of a false idea that you should be expected to choose one or the other, when actually all these things are integrated together into thinking about what kind of society do we want? How do we care for people that are vulnerable?
Yeah. So what you're saying there is almost that libraries have a kind of multiplier effect. They provide a core service, we hope, they provide this space and the time, but by doing that, they enable other activities to happen, enable other things to work better. And obviously, when you remove the library, you haven't got a community space where people can go to get information, where they can access computers, or where they can access books and just the freedom to read and dream. Let me raise a couple of other things. I'm conscious that you were able to do this campaign because you were an independent person. And I'm also conscious that many of the library staff who are watching our conversation, listening to our conversation, will know that they're not in a position to effectively campaign in that way for various reasons concerned with the neutrality of local government employees. Were you particularly conscious of you being able to speak in a way that others couldn't, and without betraying any confidences? I'm hoping you're going to say that library staff were quietly or noisily entirely in support of what you were doing.
They were, and actually one of the very first things we did was we got in touch with all the community libraries and library teams in Birmingham to say, this is what's going to happen. A writer's going to come to your library, but you in no way need to be involved in this. There's no expectation on you. You don't need to do anything. You don't even need to respond to this email. We just want to let you know this is happening, but also that as a group of writers and readers and people that live in this city, we're 100% behind you. Nothing is going to be asked of you. Like, I know how busy librarians are, and also in a really difficult political situation as well, not allowed to actively campaign or speak out. So obviously, without naming libraries, I'll just say that my heart was really deeply touched by the responses of the librarians, just the private responses of librarians, and actually through the campaign, because we gathered so much public response. People's love for libraries, library teams, librarians who they felt had changed their lives was so moving. So we were able actually to pass some of those stories and that thanks on, like, just such deep appreciation, not just from writers, but from readers and communities for all the work that librarians do for them.
Well, that's really gratifying to hear. It doesn't come as any surprise to me, but so in a way, you and other writers were doing what writers have always done, which is to act as vehicles for the conversations that other people either aren't allowed to have or don't have the particular skills to be able to articulate, as you do.
Yeah, and I think I was actually just saying to the librarian in my local library, which I shan't name, I was saying, I'm very happy to be a thorn in the side of those hoping to close libraries. In a way, I know you can't be. I can speak out about it.
Yeah.
So if I've got that possibility, then I 100% want to go for that, because I've got nothing to lose.
well, let's move on to the prospect of you being a thorn in the side of people. So the campaign was happening and happened. Can you sort of bring us up to speed on some of the impacts you'd noticed or responses you noticed from people who were in position of power and authority, and indeed, how things are looking now?
So one thing that was really pleasing to us was that we heard that those kind of in the decision-making level were really taken aback by the level of response, by the coordination, by the strength of public feeling. There were sort of protests and reading at libraries, consultation meeting in Harborne that had hundreds of people turn up for it. So I think they were sort of really taken aback, and it definitely shaped the outcome of the consultation, in that more library buildings were kept open. A less drastic option for now was being chosen. Even more recently, there's been a pushback against plans that were slipped through to close lots of libraries on Saturdays, which, as we know, is such a crucial day for children. So then again, we managed to push back against that, and now those plans have been put on hold for a while longer. But I feel like it's a continual process of pushing back. That's one of our phrases that we often use in our social media and our campaigning: keep pushing back. Because, as I think we know, there's so much financial pressure upon councils that we mustn't allow them to think that we don't care about libraries and that they're in any way a disposable resource. So it's important to just keep that pushback up.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that work, and hopefully it will inspire other people who are not library staff, or library staff, to mention quietly to other people that the voices of individual citizens, particularly when they are writers and are used to being articulate, they can be used to good effect. I'm going to, we've got a little bit more time for conversation. I was hoping we may have a short poem for you at the very end. It doesn't have to involve libraries, but it'd be a shame to have Liz Berry on a call and not hear you read a wonderful poem. But before then, one of the criticisms we hear of libraries, particularly from people who have grown out of using them, and it's very easy to grow out of using them if you get your reading in other ways, or you don't have the requirements of taking children to a library and so on. We hear them suggesting that they are yes, they were important in the past, and we've got lots of lovely stories about how they were important in the past, but that they won't be important in the future for all the many reasons I'm sure you can name. Is there something quintessential about libraries have you discovered that we can use to counter that argument that they are a provision of the past rather than a provision of the future?
Yeah, because I think actually, certainly amongst the young people that we spoke to in Birmingham, so people in their late teens, their 20s, there's lots of general excitement still about reading, and particularly about the social aspect of reading, of talking about books, of sharing books. You know, we've sort of seen the rise of sort of social media, book chat and book groups and recommendations. But also I think there's something I'm seeing now, which is kind of a sort of a return or enthusiasm for something a bit slower. So a non-super fast digital information overload way of thinking. And I especially see that amongst young people who've grown up in that hyper fast world. And I think that's something that libraries can tap into. They're this sort of this dreamy place. People often use words like magical or enchanting or dreamy, slow. And I think those are all things that we can tap into. But I think also we can tap into the sort of the community mindedness of younger people as well. Actually, this idea of sharing, of information being free, of having access to all sorts of things and really going deep on things. So I think that's something that we can definitely tap into, this kind of social side, and also a return to something that's a bit more thoughtful, mindful, slower, less immediate and overwhelming.
Yes, so many of the things you described there are things that we were told the internet would deliver, and of course the internet delivered them very quickly and have now stopped delivering them. In that, you know, now it is not a safe space, now it is not a slow space, it certainly isn't a space where you can trust what you're going to read. Ironically, libraries are still safe, slow if you want to make them slow, and you can certainly trust that no one is going to try and offer you fake news through the library service. They will just give you what they think are good pieces of information, and obviously books of a certain quality.
Something that came up too, Jonathan, I just mentioned
yes.
this is such a lovely thing, and actually it was in Jonathan Coe's piece talking about libraries. We had such a big response to this piece, because he talked about the serendipity involved in libraries. When you type something to Google, you're searching for a particular thing, and even now AI will suggest some garbled version of that exact question you asked. Whereas you go into a library, you're kind of going in the spirit of curiosity, of wonder, of being waylaid, of seeing what story or what adventure you might find. And lots of people talked about this idea of kind of the curiosity involved in libraries, serendipity.
Yeah, that's a lovely thing to mention. It's not something that we necessarily promote with libraries. The fact that rather than coming in and getting what you want, you can come in and get what you didn't know you wanted. Hence my collection of books about bricks, which, you know, I had no. Yeah, it takes a library to tell you this is what you need to know about. But and you need time, of course, to browse in those shelves where you've never looked before, to have a chance meeting with some subject which might indeed change your life.
And I think that's something really appealing for younger people as well, maybe for all people, this idea of finding something or discovering something unexpected. And this is something I talk about a lot to my sons, they're 8 and 11. The fact that actually at the library you can take a chance. You're not paying $15.99 for a book. You can try something, completely off the wall. You might like it, doesn't matter if you don't, you can swap it again the following week. And that's something I think is a really tantalizing prospect.
Yes, and I mean, you mentioned your children using the library, and you mentioned the rattle and rhyme. I'd love for there to be a rattle and rhyme scheme for people of my age. I mean, I don't want to, not with a, yeah, we'd all like that, wouldn't we? But the serious point is, of course, libraries are still a space where many generations can mix freely and, you know, generally speaking, get on okay together in a way that so many of our other spaces on the high street. By the way they promote themselves, they're definitely saying to me, I'm not welcome because of my age or whatever it might be. So would you say finally something about the microcosm of community perhaps that libraries might offer to us?
Yeah, so I mentioned before I run a reading group, which is like a group where we read aloud stories and poems together. Maybe it is a bit like rattle and rhyme for adults, Jonathan, but we operate in one bit of the library. But in the other room, then you've got mums, toddlers who have a session with the librarian there, a rattle and rhyme session. But I see people of all ages in between, people coming in for different things, to use the computers, fill in forms, to work quietly, to read books, to borrow books, to attend some of the different groups there. So I think sometimes when I sit there in King's Heath Library, I think you see all human life in the library, from its highs and lows, its loveliness and vulnerabilities. And there's something really precious about that, a space where we sort of remember that actually we live in a really mixed city full of all sorts of people. And it is possible just to bob along together.
Wonderful. Well, on that subject, I'm hoping that well, I'm fairly certain that some of your poetry writing will have happened as a result of libraries, possibly in libraries. Perhaps we could finish this session with a short poem. I mentioned this to you earlier, Liz. I don't know what you're going to read. I don't know if it's going to have a library connection or not, but I just know it'd be lovely to hear you read a piece of poetry to finish before we have our final session. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Well, I'll read a poem of mine that was in the Brum Library zine. So I was paired with King's Standing Library in the north of the city. And the special thing about King's Standing was that when it opened in 1964, it was the first community library in Birmingham to hold a children's story time on the carpet. They have this great news article about library has carpet and holds story time. It was just so beautiful. And so I wrote a poem about the joy of the library rattle and rhyme, or the story time. So it's just called Story Time. A book comes alive when we share it. Read it aloud, it sings. Lift it and turn it, its pages are wings. Speckled bright as it flies between us, over bookshelves and desks. Children cupping hands to catch it. But it can't be caught, only followed. Because now we're in this story. And the carpet's a jungle, a rocket to the stars, a wood so dark we hold hands to enter. Librarian, babies, carers, toddlers, wriggling and kneeling, rocking, holding. Each peach, pear, plum, a slinking cat, a fish slipping, shining from the net. Here's our gift to those we dream for. A story like a boat to skim across oceans. A library to harbour in when life blows a storm.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Liz. I can't think of a better way to finish our conversation with that beautiful poem. Thank you very much for talking about what you've given us today. I'll let you, as we say, see yourself home, but we hope you stay following the session. And I'm now delighted to welcome onto the screen Sue Ball. Sue Ball is Libraries and Arts Manager at Staffordshire County Council. Yes, got that right. And you have worked in libraries for a long time, Sue. And you very kindly offered in the final few minutes to just sum up some of the information, inspiration, etc. what we've had this afternoon. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to talk us through what you think we've probably taken away from these fabulous set of presentations.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. And my goodness, well, I've written so many notes as well. It's been a great afternoon. I think if I take us back to the start, it was really wonderful to hear from Jason and Hayley about the research influencing the campaign for the National Year of Reading, about the plans and the support that's going to be there. And I think 2026 is going to be a really exciting year for us, with so many partners working together to shift the focus of reading by taking reading to where culture is and integrating it into activities that people love. And I think for us, we've got a really fantastic opportunity to promote all types of reading. And Jason mentioned, you know, the physical, the electronic resources, the fiction, the non-fiction. And I think really my challenge to everyone is to think outside the box and be creative in how we promote these resources, and who are the partners that we need to work with to help us make reading relevant in our local areas. And I too liked, like Angela, what Jason said about the need to build on what exists and not necessarily create anything new. I think hearing from Kimberly about the support for book clubs from the reading agency was also insightful. The resources are excellent for helping people to start new book clubs, to help book clubs thrive. And I think, you know, let's all make a concerted effort to promote these resources, but also consider how we can use them to enhance our library offers and promote National Year of Reading. And I thought the research findings are really useful for making the case for funding and or demonstrating the value of reading with any new and existing partners we want to work with to engage new readers. And just a quick call to action, don't forget to sign up for the newsletters and join the publisher roadshows, which are coming up next week as well. I think Amy and Terry's presentations on their reader development initiatives were truly inspiring. Our goal should be to help people discover new authors and titles, and to show them how reading can be relevant to their interests by connecting it to the activities they enjoy. I think book bingo really does this. I love the idea of the Facebook group so people can chat virtually and share their readings and titles that they've read. And just to mention about the Desert Island postcards, we also promoted this to Staffordshire County Council employees, our director and our chief executive officer. And I think, you know, our colleagues who don't read are a really great target audience for us during National Year of Reading. Well, anytime really. Lastly, it was really lovely to hear from Liz. I loved Liz's passion for libraries. I think takeaway points for me is a reminder of the importance of outreach and the need for libraries to be working with groups and organisations and demonstrating support. And I think I love the word that you used, Jonathan, to be enablers. And I think that that's really, really important. I love Liz's reference to libraries as an oasis, a place to dream. And I think that's our USP in a really fast-paced world. And I noted lots of words that Liz mentioned, like serendipity, curiosity, discovery, and you can take a chance in a library. And I thought, I love that. We've got to use it somehow, I think, in our marketing. So I think in conclusion, I would encourage you all to reflect on what you've heard today and think about how we can leverage the National Year of Reading to integrate reading into what people love doing. And in the words of the campaign, if you live it, read it, it's time to go all in. So back to you, Jonathan.
Wonderful. Well, that was a masterly example of how to synopsize almost 2 hours of conversation. So, Sue, we're so grateful for your time in doing that for us, and for all your support for the work of the West Midlands Readers Network. I welcome back on screen my colleague Angela. Angela's going to give some formal thanks and final notes, but before she does, I'd like to thank some people behind the scenes, my colleagues at Writing West Midlands, Susie, Viddy and Emily, who have played an absolutely wonderful game of keeping this show on the road, despite the scarcity of Wi-Fi in the West Midlands, it turns out. But also I'd like to thank Angela for putting the programme together and presenting it so eloquently, and now finally coming back to give us a final few word of thanks and some more notes. So Angela, thank you so much, and over to you for the final words.
Thank you, Jonathan. Well, we hope you've all enjoyed our various presentations and discussions, that they provided food for thought, information and inspiration. The film of the toolkit will be posted on the West Midlands Readers Network YouTube channel next week, so you can rewatch or signpost colleagues there. It'll give you the chance to pause and capture the information on those various presentations. There has been a lot to digest this afternoon. But if you have a question from the sessions that you think has remained unanswered, or if you think of one later on, please feel free to get in touch. Our email is on the West Midlands Readers Network website, and my colleagues have shared that in the chat as well. Well, it just leaves me to say thank you so much to all our guest speakers this afternoon, to my colleagues at Writing West Midlands for today's production, and Jonathan for co-presenting, and to you all for your company at today's toolkit. Thank you very much, and bye.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to now stop recording.